In the dimly lit edges of my vision, the cabin had always seemed a quaint retreat, nestled among the sprawling, whispering pines that fringed the north side of Clearwater Lake. I arrived just as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, the sun dipping low behind the dense forest. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of solitude and peace, a perfect escape from the relentless pace of city life. The keys had been left under the mat by Mrs. Halloway, the owner, who'd been all too eager to rent it out for the month. "Enjoy the quiet," her message had read, a simple note that now felt like a distant whisper. I spent the first few nights wrapped in the serenity of the wilderness, the only sounds being the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore and the occasional call of a night bird. It was on the fourth night, however, that the veil of peace was torn away, replaced by a palpable, creeping dread that clung to the shadows of the cabin. It began with a whisper. Not the wind's whisper, but a human's, hushed and hoarse, questioning, "Why are you here?" The voice seemed to slither in from the gaps in the floorboards, seeping into the still air of the cabin. I sat upright in bed, my heart a silent drum against my chest, straining my ears against the thick silence that followed. I convinced myself it was the trickery of the wind, a playful taunt of the isolation I had so craved. But then came the banging. 3 sharp, aggressive knocks against the bedroom door, each thudded a stark declaration that my earlier fear was not unfounded. I had locked the cabin door myself, double-checking the windows in a bout of paranoia that now seemed prophetic. The realization that someone, or something, was inside the house with me sent a cold shiver down my spine. I was trapped in a room, the only barrier between me and my unseen visitor being a thin wooden door that now seemed as substantial as paper. In desperation, I dialed the local sheriff's department, my whispers betraying the terror that threatened to choke me. "Please, someone is in my house," I pleaded, the words tumbling out in a hurried stream. But as fate would have it, the storm that had been brewing over the lake chose that moment to unleash its fury, the signal cutting out with a crackle, leaving me in an even deeper silence than before. With no other choice, I turned to the window, prying it open with trembling hands. The ground below was a dark abyss, but the fear of what lay behind the door outweighed the fear of the unknown outside. I dropped to the damp grass, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps as I sprinted towards the nearest neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, his silhouette a beacon in the night as he stood in his doorway, watching the storm. My relief at seeing another human was short-lived. As I approached, calling out for help, his expression morphed into one of cold indifference. He observed me, a curious look in his eye, but made no move to assist or even speak. It was as if he saw through me, or perhaps saw something I could not. My pleas for help seemed to fall on deaf ears, his unresponsive stance sending a new wave of panic through me. Retreating back to the cabin, the storm now a tempest around me, I braced myself for what awaited. The door swung open with a creak, the interior as silent as a crypt. Steeling my nerves, I made my way to the bedroom, the very heart of my terror. And there, seated on the edge of my bed, was a figure, shadowed and indistinct. It turned towards me, and in the flickering light, I saw it was Mrs. Halloway, or rather, something that wore her face like a grotesque mask. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth twisted in a silent scream, a mockery of the kindly woman I had met just days ago. I fled, the primal instinct to survive overtaking all else. I burst through the door, into the storm, the cabin fading behind me as I ran, not daring to look back. The woods seemed to close in around me, the trees whispering secrets I no longer wished to know. By the time the police arrived, dawn was breaking, the storm having spent its rage. They found the cabin empty, no sign of the intruder or Mrs. Halloway. Mr. Jenkins claimed ignorance, a blank look on his face, as if our encounter had been a figment of my imagination. The investigation turned up nothing, the cabin as serene as when I had first arrived, a stark contrast to the horror that had unfolded. In the weeks that followed, I tried to piece together the events, to find some logic in the madness. But there was none to be found. The cabin remained a mystery, a dark blot on the landscape that whispered of unseen things. I could never shake the feeling of being watched, of a presence lingering just beyond the edge of perception. The experience left a mark on me, a scar that no amount of time could heal. I had sought solitude, but found terror. And in the end, the quiet I had so desired became the very thing I feared the most. For in the silence, I could still hear it, that whisper asking, "Why are you here?" And the unyielding banging on the door, a reminder of the night when the veil between worlds had thinned, and I had glimpsed what lay beyond.